I just got the G Pro Outdoor or Attic Mount HD antenna from Lowe's. It was $42.48. It says it has a 70-mile range, and it's touted as the #1 antenna brand. I usually get antennas from Antennas Direct, but I figured since this advertises the same specifications, and it's much cheaper than either model of the Antennas Direct outdoor-indoor antennas, that I'd try it out. So of course it says it has an enhanced HD TV 4K 1080p, supports VHF, UHF, and it comes with a mounting bracket, a mast, and assembly instructions. It also says it has a lifetime warranty. On this side of the box, it's just showing you how to set up your whole home with the antenna, with amplifiers, splitters, and coaxial cable. They also have an antenna web app that you can download. It also says to position your antenna towards the tower and avoid any obstructions. The back of the box just shows the antenna attached to the outside of a house. The other side of the box shows the same information. On the box just says it's made in China and has some recycling information and some contact information. Let's open up the outdoor HD antenna plus attic mount. And pull the tabs out here. Pull the other tab out. Alright, looks like we have the plastic antenna pieces here. And we have our mount to attach to the roof or the attic. Here's our mast. Let's take it out of the plastic. It just has a reminder to do the channel scan when you're installing. Looks like we have all our screws and bolts and nuts that we need. Some cardboard. Here looks to be another part of the antenna. It says keep it away from electrical wires. And some cardboard. Have our wing nuts here. Alright, so we have parts of the antenna, more parts of the antenna, and more parts of the antenna. Put those to the side for now. Okay, we have some zip ties here and some sort of cover, some plastic black cover inside here. We have some very small nuts and screws and washers. Looks like some small covers as well. We have some metal triangles here. And the instruction booklet. Let's put this antenna together. So we have our main boomer mast here. It says to remove this foam block from the bolts and nuts here. It says to remove these bolts and the lock washers. So let's take those off of here. They're very small. You could see them right there. Just turn them counterclockwise to take those off. You can easily take them off with your fingers. Drop the washer off. Don't want to lose those. Those are very small. Do the same thing to the other side here. Okay, I'm going to take that right off. And the washer as well. Next up, we're going to grab our VHF dip pulls, take off the rubber band, and then slide them into another. Next up, we're going to take our VHF dip pulls and slide them onto the main boom. And then just attach them to the bolts, just like so. Okay, so we have the dip pulls attached. It's wrapped around the main boom so that we could put our bolt on the other side here later. And we just got to take our little washers, put those back on. Put a washer on each bolt. Same thing with the nuts that we took off. Put those back on. Just going to turn those clockwise this time to tighten them up. Put both of those back on. The bolts here. Turn that clockwise and tighten it up. Now we have to open up the other package. of nuts and screws and bolts. Just gonna cut that open. You can line them all up to see which one's which. So the instructions say that we need the M3 by 14 millimeter sheet metal screw. You can tell because we only have one of them and it's slightly longer than the rest. Okay, so let's attach our dip pole with that screw. Alright, so I'm just going to use a little screwdriver to tighten this in. The one I have on hand is a number 1 Phillips. So I'm not going to tighten that up too much, just enough to secure it. Next up, we're going to attach the UHF dip poles C as labeled on the dip poles. Take the rubber bands off. You want your antenna positioned like this, with the coaxial connector pointing down. And right here on the main antenna boom, it says C, where to attach these dip poles. So we'll just slide them in there. Slide the other one in there. So they're both pointing up, just like so. And then we're going to attach them with the M3 by 12 millimeter bolts and nuts. So let's take those, put those in there, line up the hole, and put the bolt in. So that's going to slide down right in there, no problem. Make sure we have the holes lined up on the other side. Just drop your bolt in there. If you need to push it down, just take your screwdriver, turn it clockwise, push down a little bit, and that's going to go right through there. On the other side here, have both our bolts, and now we have our nuts. So we'll just pop our bolts in there, and we can tighten these up. Just going to use a screwdriver and just tighten these up. Now we have dip pole C connected. We're going to do the same thing with parts B and A, except we're going to use the 8 millimeter screws to attach them. So here we have our dip poles B. Now as you can see, it says B on the mast. So we're just going to slide that right into the B slot. Same thing on the other side here. So now our mast looks like this. And we're going to put the screws in on the other side. So flip it over. Make sure our holes are all lined up here. And then we'll just take our screws and screw them in. We're just going to attach these dip poles B. We're going to make sure not to over tighten these screws here. Make sure our holes lined up on the other side. Hold those in and then pop in the screw. And that should go in quite nicely. Make sure we don't over tighten this side either. Seems good. Check this side. Okay, that is snug as well. So that seems good. Last up, we have dip pole A. Take off the rubber band. Locate A at the top of the mast here. We're going to slide those in. Slide in our other side. Flip it over. Make sure our holes are lining up. Hold that in place so our hole lines up. Drop the screw in. Tighten it up. Same thing on the other side here. Line up our holes. Get that screw in there. And then tighten it up. Make sure not to over tighten. We want those nice and snug. Both sides are secure. Let's move on to the next step. This is what our antenna looks like so far. Let's put this to the side. We're going to grab the reflector bracket. Take the bands off of there. Next up, we're going to take 6 reflector rods and attach them to 1/2 of the reflector bracket. Let's take the rubber band off the reflector rods, and it has 2 punched holes to tell you where the center is when you're attaching it. So let's slide them in. You have the little hole on the side there. I'm going to slide in the rod. Just lift up that tab a little bit. Slide it through. See, we have our center divots here we want to get in the center. So you want to make sure those center divots are pointing up, like so. Because you need to turn the rod for it's pointing up so you can pull the tab and it will slide in there. Otherwise, it's not going to slide in there. Have the tab up. Center divots are pointing up. Slides in. So you can see our center divots are in the center there. So there's one there. You have one on the other side. You just want to turn it so the divots are pointing towards you. So you have the flat part there. So now this is secure in place. And we're going to do the same for the rest of the rods here. See, now I can't move it one way or the other because the divots are pointing out this way. All rods are attached and the divots are pointing towards us. Let's move on to the next reflector bracket. Okay, so we're going to get our other set of reflector rods here. 6 reflector rods for the 6 slots in the reflector bracket. Same thing we just did. Point the holes pointing up. Pull that tab out a little bit. Slide that right in there. And you see your holes in the center. Make them face you. You'll see you're in the center, or if you have to adjust a little bit. So you see the hole on each side of that tab there. And then you move on to the next reflector rod. And keep going. We have all 6 reflector rods and the other half of the reflector bracket. Let's slide those brackets together. Just like so. And just slide them together. Okay, so we have both of those brackets together. Let's move on to the next step. Next up, we're going to grab the rubber end caps. Open up that bag. We're going to attach all these rubber end caps to the end of the rods here. Okay, just slide them on and keep on going. Now we have all the rubber end caps onto the reflector rods on this half of the reflector bracket. Let's move on to the next bracket. Dump out the end caps here and just start putting them on. Get our second cap on here. Now we have all the end caps on, our rods in place. Let's put our brackets together. Now we're going to take our main boom, slide the metal end through the reflector bracket here. So we have our holes aligned there. We have to open up our other package of nuts and bolts here. So let's open that up. We're going to take our M6 by 10 millimeter bolt out of that package, the shorter bolt in the package. And then we're going to take the washers from the previous package and use those. So we want to use the smaller washer if you put everything together by accident. We're just going to slide our washer onto our bolt and then put our bolt in and screw it in. Same thing with the other side. Put the washer on our bolt, put it in, and screw it in. You can hand start both of those bolts and then just finish them off with a screwdriver. Just want to get those nice and snug. Same thing with the other side here. Next up, we're going to take the wing nuts off our U-bolt. You could just spin those counterclockwise. Do it however you like. We're going to insert the U-bolt through the holes in the metal bracket and just put our wing nuts back on there. We just want them on there. We don't want to tighten them up right now. Let's spin on the other one. So that's good enough for now. Next up, we're going to grab our two M6 by 50 millimeter bolts, two of the M6 washers out of the 4, and our two M6 locking nuts. We're going to open up our mounting bracket, take it out of the package, get our J-mount. Okay, let's put our washers on our bolts. Get our J-mount, put it in the bracket, put our bolt through the bottom hole there so it's secure, and then we have our second hole here for the slider, so we can put that bolt in there as well. Slide that through, and this bolt here helps you position the mount however you want to position it. Just going to attach our nuts on the other side here. Just hand tighten those on for now. We want to try and make the antenna level. I'm going to get that straight as possible. If you have a level, check with a level. We want to make sure the J-mount is perpendicular to the ground using a level. Then we want to take two number 10 wrenches and tighten up our M6 bolts. Just put one on one side and one on the other. And then tighten the bolts. I want to make sure the center bolt is tight as well. So just tighten that up while holding the other bolt with your number 10 wrenches. Next we want to slide on the U-bolt that's attached to the antenna onto the J-mount, and then tighten up the wing nuts. This will secure our antenna to the mount, and we'll just take our 1/4 inch by 2 inch log screws and attach our mount to our roof, our attic, or wherever you want to put your antenna. Now I'm going to secure the antenna mount with the screws provided. I decided to mount the antenna in the attic. The reception actually comes in really well up here. It's always good to have a test wire that goes to a test television to see what your reception's like. I'm going to attach the antenna using the number 10 socket. I'll put this next screw in. Then the front screw. I'm going to use the 5/32 bit to make a hole before I put in the anchor. Now that we have our hole pre-drilled, we're going to put in our final anchor. Now we have all 4 anchors attached. The coaxial cable is attached to the antenna. Here's a look at the final setup. So we have the antenna bolted down to the floor, and the coaxial cable is attached to the antenna, and it's going through the wall to the coaxial wall plate outlet, and then there's another coaxial cable going to the TV. Overall, I'm really impressed with this antenna. I was trying to use the antenna from Antennas Direct, but I had to point that in the exact perfect position to try to get certain channels in. But with this antenna, you can be quite a bit off with your direction, and I'm getting all channels in plus more than I was getting with the antenna from Antennas Direct. Here's another look at the antenna from far away. Here I have the antenna's coaxial cable coming out of the wall, going into the faceplate, and then going into another coaxial cable that goes to the TV. We have the other end of the wire attached to the back of the TV. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a comment below. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.